Leadership tip. If it's not documented, it does not exist. And if it's documented wrong, it's basically a paper trail of your chaos. And for those of you who are thinking like, ugh, documentation, wow. It's not about bureaucracy and red tape and all of that, which it does get there, not gonna lie. But for this purpose, we are talking about how documentation is going to help you break free. So, in this episode, we're going to be talking about how your code gives you a specific way to document. Like, there's different ways that you can document it. It's not doesn't mean like, oh, I have to sit here all day and write SOPs, right? You can determine how it gets done, when it gets done. Like, those are the things that you actually have to document, and in a way that makes sure people are going to actually use it. So, hi, welcome back to another episode of the Decoded Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Ota, and today we're going to be talking about how to decode your documentation process and like what it means when you avoid documentation. So we're going to be breaking down how your natural patterns, your natural styles for each archetype influence whether your team has what they need to operate without you, or if you end up stuck answering the same questions over and over again. Because again, at the end of the day, as a leader in business, you have to understand that scaling is super important, right? If you want to grow and expand your business, learning how to scale is going to really be that thing that takes you over the line. So again, in the PACE framework, right, the 4 different archetypes, PACE, producer is always first. And so the default or the Achilles heel of this archetype is keeping processes stuck in our heads. And when it's all stuck in our heads, that means no one else can actually do it or replicate it. It's like, because when you in the time quadrant, right, you guys sit in the money quadrant, and documentation is like, oh my gosh, this is going to slow me down. I'm not going to get there faster. Like, you're driven for money and success patterns. And so it's like, oh my gosh, writing this down is going to take so much time. Like, I need to get there faster. No, So you see it as slowing down your revenue path, when in actuality, right, having these processes documented is actually going to increase your growth exponentially, but you have to discipline yourself enough to write it down. So how your nervous system works against you is like that sitting down, it goes completely opposite of the fight response. It's like doing, go, right? The pushing forward, but pausing to just write some of this stuff down, is going to really create that exponential growth that you're looking for. And so right now, what it's costing you is having a team that relies solely on you. And this is where like the bottlenecks is like, yeah. So how to do it is, right, because again, like for you, slowing down is like the worst thing that I could tell you to do. So here's how I tell my client to work around this is like, when you're doing the thing, because for you, right, your fight response, your nervous system response is doing, right? The fight, doing. So record the process. Like, as you're working through something, pull up Zoom, Loom, whatever is your boat. But I know people in the producer archetype using another tool like Loom just to record something, not, And so what I tell these people to do is, I guess, pull up Zoom, like you're on Zoom all day, every day, record it. Record the process while you're doing it. And this is also for people who aren't ready to delegate, aren't, even like there to document and give this stuff to people, but even for your own process, like to have this done ahead of time is going to exponentially grow you, because when it is time to delegate, you'll have all of this stuff already documented and it's not going to slow you down. So growth will actually be exponential for you if you take a little bit of a slowdown, record everything as you're doing it. And then how I do it, because I'm like, why am I going to record it on Zoom and then put it somewhere, blah, blah, blah. I just link my Zoom to my Vimeo account. So anytime I record to the cloud, it automatically goes into Vimeo. And so essentially, every time I record, I'm building on my library. Sorry, so isn't that cool? Doesn't that sound fast? I want to entice you to embrace this documentation process. So let me know in the comments, like, yes, I could do this. Recording, like one shot, one kill. Yes. Sorry, that's from my military days. The efficiency thing, right? So yeah, recording it while you're doing it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Imperfect is better than invisible. So just remember that. Having the documentation is better than having no documentation. So that's going to be for you. So again, activator is the next, PACE, activator. So your default is you love to start things, but you never finish it. So case in point, if we did use the video analogy, it's like you have so many tabs open. Like if you get pinged on one thing, it's like, oh, like your screen recording and you go from your website to maybe Instagram and like you're all over the place. You're like, oh shoot, this recording needs to be recorded again because I just pinged into something totally different. So start to finish is not something that is your strong suit, but you can make this documentation process work for you. And so because you sit in the ideas quadrant, you have so many ideas. You're like boom, boom, boom. You're very similar, like that activation energy, similar to that driving force of money and success in the producer. But for the difference between you and them is it's just the passion, like the losing interest. Like I've moved on. For them, it's more about losing ground, like to stop and smell the roses. For you, it's like it's that flittering again. I always want you to imagine the butterfly, the flittering. It's like ding, 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 ding. And you just lose interest. You're like, I'm moving on to another flower. Like I don't have time to document this process because I'm moving on, you know? So to, avoid that, and again, your nervous system default, like if this is something that is like, I don't want to do, you will avoid it like the plague, right? Flight. You're going to flee the situation. So you have to understand, like, yes, this documentation process is important to give you that freedom. So that's where I want you to dial in. Like, listen to me when I say, like, just focus on this part, because I get it. Documentation sucks the creativity just right out of you. But if you can focus on, okay, when I do this, I will get the freedom that I want. I will get, like, stay on this rose, do everything that I need to do on this rose, and then I can go to the next one. So I always want you to visualize the butterfly flittering from flower to flower to flower. But if you can stay long enough on this one flower to complete this documentation process, it's going to be one and done, and you get to move on, okay? So make sure you commit to, like this thing. You can do the video strategy like the producers earlier, but I think for you, because you have so many ideas, writing things down and just do like a quick one pager, like a step by step by step by step by step. Because the difference between you and the producer is like for them, like the execution piece and like the details of how they want things done, documentation of the success is important. But for you, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is how you do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, cool. You know? So if you can get your SOPs dialed down to like a 5-step process, it's going to really help you. And also, these documentation steps are not only for delegation purposes, but also for you to create a standardization of how you want things done. Because again, ADD, the flittering around, like, oh, if I do it this way every time, this is the way. Because you guys are very experimental. Because we are very experimental. I actually had to write down a process for myself on how to upload YouTube videos from my phone because I'm like, okay, I want to just stick the phone in and like, whoosh, like have it go. But for whatever reason, like, some of the ways that I was doing it weren't the fastest. So again, this is for you because you love fast, you love speed, like because it's different than the money loves speed with the producer. You're like, how can I get out of the mundane as fast as I can? Like, how do I just get out of this? So this create a one-page document with the top 5 steps. Like, you don't have to get into the details. Like, that's for the evaluator. They will get into the details. Just the top 5 steps and even like a short video if you want, just to keep things simple. So you have something to come back to and something that you can hand off to a team member when, you need it to be done. So moving on to the connector, PACE, right? Connector is next. So what happens here when you're trying to do the documentation process is over collaborating, meaning like, again, because the team is important, people are important, getting everyone's ideas and inputs like, oh, how do you do it? Oh, yeah, well, but how do you do it? And it's somewhat of a perfectionism involved, but it's not perfectionism driving it like the evaluator. It's more like I want to get everybody's input because I want to make sure that the SOP that I create is going to be everybody's cup of tea. So you want to cover all your bases, making sure that it's equitable for all parties involved. And so what ends up happening is you create a Google Doc or whatever, right? And then you share the document and then it's like, okay, everybody like contribute to this document, but if not one person is assigned to do it, right? Like, okay, everybody's assigned to do it and nobody's going to do it. And that's where it bites you in the butt. And so instead of trying to please everyone, right, the way that your nervous system wants to fun and make sure everyone's happy, making it perfect for everyone involved, right? Because when you do this, there's just delays that happen. And again, the confusion because, right, too many hands, or right, too many cooks in the kitchen, too many hands in the pot. It's just going to get convoluted because the way that it works for one person may not work for another person. And ultimately, the person that should be writing the SOP is the one who's going to use it. So how you can shift out of like everybody needs to contribute, it's you delegate to the person who's most likely to do the task. Ask them. And this is where like that connection piece really comes into play for you. It's like connect with that person. Hey, Susie, I really enjoyed like the way that you make your PowerPoints. Is there a way for you to come up with an SOP? Like teach us all how to do it. And right, that is bringing your connection piece because you're like doing it for everyone on the team. And so it gets that part of you activated where you're like, okay, I'm building this, I'm involving Susie. I'm making Susie feel valued in our company. And, Susie I'm elevating Susie. I'm giving her her flowers. I'm like elevating her in front of the team and letting her be the expert because this is really important to you. You want to showcase more people on your team. And then also having that one person doing the documentation is going to eliminate all the confusion. And at the same time, elevate them as an expert, which you really love because the people are more important to you than the profit. So that's going to be really important to you. And by having that one, document owner and assigning it to them, it's going to remove inconsistent execution. Because honestly, the SOPs should be written by the person who's going to use it the most, because it's most effective that way. And like we all have people revolving on our team. We have people coming in and out. It's another way, like for you as a connector, when you have the people moving in and out, you can facilitate a handoff meeting, and like they get to know each other, they get to connect, they get to meet each other, and that lights you up, connecting them and making sure that they're taken care of, their relationships are solid, and but you build in that onboarding offboarding process to satisfy your needs, your human needs as a connector, right? And then it all fits. And even if it's something that like you've done and you have someone new on your team and you're trying to delegate that, get that off your plate, and they don't even know what it is, right? You can have a meeting where you co-create together and you body double, you co-work. It's like, hey, this is how I do what I do. Get them involved. Like whatever lights you up is the way that you need to do things. And my way of distributing it amongst the four main archetypes is the way that just for the sake of efficiencies, like instead of trying all these different ways, one, get your code, take the quiz, get your code, like, okay, then you're going to have this backbone that's going to derive all the decisions in your business, how you delegate, how you document, how you delete things in your business, just saying, just having this as the backbone is going to be amazing for you. So again, last but not least, my evaluators. So again, the analysis piece of your brain makes it a very good quality as a business owner because your attention is on the details and you love the details. But when you're over documenting things, when you're like, oh, and then like you're creating all of these things that no one's going to use and when you're wasting your energy, again, you sit on the energy quadrant. So if you're wasting your time creating these SOPs that people may or may not use in the future, like that's kind of like your Achilles heel. Like when you're on something, and you're like, you kind of go down this rabbit hole of, I'm going to create SOPs. And so like you're going to create all the SOPs all at once because you have that detailed focus, which is your superpower, your strength. But if you kind of go overboard and like you do all the SOPs at one time, the backside of that, or the downside of that, is you're creating SOPs that may or may not be up to date. And like if they're not in use right now, there's no need for it. It's a waste of energy, and not to mention time, money, other resources as well. But also your nervous system default, right? Like there is the need to create all of these SOPs all at once. But then you get stuck in, I'm creating SOPs, so I'm not spending time doing the other things I'm supposed to be doing. So like there's that avoidance, right? And then there's also the freeze. You're stuck perfecting instead of finalizing. It's like, oh, well, what about, and you kind of overanalyze on like, what should I include? Should I go this into detail, or can I do a big picture view? Like, so you spend a lot of time obsessing over the details and perfecting these SOPs and documenting these things. So nothing actually gets finalized. And so again, time wasted, and then your team tends to ignore the resources because it's way too much detail. It's like, whoa, like why is there a 20-page document on how to do a podcast? Like, what is this? And so because it's so lengthy and so involved, your team is like, oh my gosh, I'm not using that thing. And so all of the time, energy that you spent into making these SOPs just falls to the wayside. So right there's a cost associated with that. And so how you can really shore up that loss is to, again, 80-20 rule for my evaluators. It's always going to be the 80-20 rule. Like, how can I get this thing to be 80%? Like the 20%, I get it, but can you be okay with letting the 20% be messy? And we all know your version of messy is not going to be an actual messy person's version of messy, but it'll be messy for you, right? So how you're going to fix that is strip it down. Like, nobody needs a 20-page document, you know what I'm saying? Like, how can you clarify? And so this is also where I want you to focus. It's not that I'm saying don't, get too, I am telling you not to get into the weeds of the details, but your beauty is, like, as the evaluator, is you can, sure, you're write it all out, but go back, evaluate all the different steps. Is this actually essential to getting the job done? Because sometimes the more steps doesn't equal more productivity. It'll actually slow things down. So strip it down and then assign it to someone, making sure that the things are going to get done. And it also forces you to, like, once you assign it to someone, that means they're going to be looking for it. So you can leverage external resources to make sure you get all the things done, right? And again, our documentation styles, right, our personality styles and the way that we document things, is really dictated by our codes. And until we decode the way that we do things, we're going to keep repeating the chaos. And together, when we get into a decoded session, what happens is really, like, one, we pinpoint your code, and then we map it to the time wheel, right? All of your quadrants. And then based on that, we give you the process for documenting things in a way that your team will actually use, that you will actually use, that will actually have a benefit. So again, knowing your codes are so important. On the 4 Ds we already talked about, right? Decide, delete, delegate, then document. Because without these 4 steps, you're really going to be spinning your wheels, and you're not going to leverage the resources that you have in your business. So if you need help with any of these 4 Ds, right? Especially if you need help with the documentation process. I'm sure you could figure it out, but getting into the decoding sessions, right? Deciding, the deleting, the delegating, getting those out of the way, like, we'll work on those in the decoded sessions. That will give you the actual things that you need to document. Because if you're doing it out of order, it really doesn't make sense, right? You have to decide first, then you delete. Because if you delegate something that should have been deleted and you document something that shouldn't be deleted, that's a waste of resources. And here on the Decode Leadership Podcast, I'm here to help you optimize your operations. And understanding your leadership style is going to really streamline all of your systems, all of your processes, and tuning into your personality type and your style, the way that you lead, is going to be so helpful for your business. So anyway, again, thanks for listening. Thanks for being here on the Decoded Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Kylie Ota, and I will see you again next time. Bye.